you check the children.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Marcia Parker.
And we are back to do another Patreon request for you guys. And this is one I'm actually really excited to talk about for a couple of reasons. One, thank you first off to Scuba Steve, who has been a long-term supporter of the channel and patron. And this is definitely one I'm glad he recommended. I don't know if he happened to also be the person that recommended the Grave Encounters movies, even though we'd already seen those, but it's likely because what we're going to talk about today is just a scary Korean version of Grave Encounters. Mm-hmm. And it's called Gunjiam Haunted Asylum. And I will say that I had this on our list for a little while at this point, and it was just one I was like, oh, clearly that's going to be a foreign one. I don't know, Sometimes they can be iffy, sometimes they can be really good, but it just wasn't on the priority. And then Marcia started to watch it, and she messaged through our group thread, Cecil, I think you should watch this one. It's people investigating a haunted asylum. And I was like, ooh, okay. And my overall thoughts, just real quick, are I was super glad that you said to do that. It was a really excellent version of this. It is what you could consider a found footage movie. Mm-hmm. But there's elements to it that found footage movies don't necessarily usually have, including music. And the reason why they had it is actually pretty clever in the storytelling. So I thought this was a shining example of a found footage movie that really caused my hair to stand on end numerous times. And there was, towards the end especially, there was a time where I went, like I clapped my hands together and was just so tense because of something. And that thing continued to come back through the rest of the movie. And I believe I'm using it as the thumbnail, so you guys are probably have already seen a glimpse or at least a still image of this, but I loved this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I was like so excited when I first started watching it. I was like, okay, we'll see what this is. And then I'm like, oh, I know what this is going to be. And I'm like, this is going to be really good. And like just when they're just the part when they're getting together. Mm-hmm. And that's when I first go, oh, Cecil's gonna love this. This is right up his alley. And then as I went through and watched it, it just kept getting better and better and better. And it's just like I'm almost thinking like this is my favorite movie that I've seen in the last couple months. Like it's just we don't get I don't go to theaters very often, but I would say this is better than anything that I would even see in the theaters here.
Recently, some of the generic ones for sure.
Especially when you're talking about paranormal, you're talking about paranormal and you're talking about found footage. Like this is so good. It was so good, and I'm so excited, and I can't wait to dive in because I love this movie. It's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was really excellent. So getting into the story, it's not far off of The Cleansing Hour, which we reviewed recently. I don't know if you were on that review, but that was the YouTubers that do a exorcism show that is, every episode is kind of an exorcism that they kind of fake for the audience, but the conceit is what happens if, the exorcism is actually real for an episode, and that's what this is. They're doing a big ghost hunt at one of the 7 most haunted places, and by they I mean this dude has this channel, I forgot what it's called, like Terror Vision or something like
Horror
that.
Times.
Horror Times, okay, thank you. And so he runs this channel, and he has assembled this team to go and investigate this one of the most 7 scariest places on Earth, supposedly, in Korea. It's this haunted, shut-down asylum. And they obviously, when they get there, things start to happen, and it turns out that some of it is real, some of it may not be real. Who is in on it, who isn't in on it, and are they in on all of it, or is something actually going on? And just how the story progressed was excellent, and I enjoyed, again, it's a found footage movie. It's not the deepest of movies, but because you have to focus for us on the subtitles to get what's going on, you know, I feel like I got a bit more character development than I normally get in a movie like this.
Yep.
And that only helped with my investment into the characters and what happened to them and how it happened to them in some cases. And yeah, I was just really pleased with, I mean, it's you know, one at a time people start to run afoul of things, and that's how things play out. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, I don't want to say much more than that for fear of spoiling anything, but I thought the story was played out excellently.
Oh yeah, I thought the story was really clever. Just, I mean, it's similar to what we've seen in a lot of different movies, but I love watching the integration of like the YouTube story as they developed. And I think as it resonated a little bit with what we do all the time. We did go on a ghost investigation, maybe not as intense as this one.
Nope.
But we did do one.
It was fun too.
It was kind of cool to see like how they would put it together, and like you said, the development of the characters and how it kind of pushed the story along. And it was deeper because you knew before they got to the asylum the basic of this story. They did a pre-planning, production planning. They went through the equipment, explained the equipment, so when you're watching the movie, like everything kind of makes sense on how it's being filmed. And then when they revealed like certain like, oh, we did this, we did that behind the camera, you're like, oh, okay, so not everything that wasn't real, but at the same time you're watching, you see little glimpses of stuff. And so yeah, so the story overall I loved. I got into it, helped me stay focused and carried me through the whole movie, and it made me invest in the characters, which is important with movies like this because you need to be invested.
Well, part of what made it work so well was the structure of the story. And what I mean by that is, you know, normally in a movie like this, and even in Grave Encounters, they spend a lot of time setting things up, and then the thing starts, and then everyone's kind of together through the whole thing, and people have to break off and make excuses for breaking off and stuff like that. In this one, the structure was the guy whose YouTube channel it is was at the base camp that they set up, and there were basically 3 teams worth of people, worth 3 duos, and so he would have, you know, one duo set up on the 3rd floor. And since everything that was taking place was essentially done as a live show, they were trying to gain as many viewers as possible. Their goal was to get 1 million concurrent viewers. And so as things progress, obviously the viewership goes up, but it's done live with, they cut together some best of replays so they can restage some, or, you know, reset for some certain things. But because there's a number of teams, there's no downtime. So you see what happens with one team, right? They have their weird experience, and like it's like, oh, okay, here's normally where there's a break and the characters have to go do something else, and then you can do something else. But no, he's like, okay, next team, and the next team is on the next floor, and then they can have something scary without having to do the necessary reset that found footage movies oftentimes have to do to make things make sense.
I agree with that, and even when they were doing the replays and they were replaying it for us to watch and to reset,
it's all the best parts, so we're happy to see it.
Yeah, like, oh, let's watch that in slow motion because that was super cool. I kind of missed it because it went like fast and like, oh, and you're noticing other things in it, and so yeah, it was super fun to watch.
And I think that's a good way to segue into the actual production and presentation of the of the found footage movie. It is, yes, it's done. It's not just like 2 people each holding a camera the entire time.
Correct.
It's high tech because they're a team that does this for a YouTube channel. So yes, there are a couple people that have that, but everyone has this, you know, harness set up that's got a GoPro in front that's just below their face. I was like, if they're going to wear it here, that's going to be annoying for the whole movie. But no, it's worn low enough where it shows their face, and it's got a camera facing the other way, so you see what everyone's looking at as well. So everyone's got 2 POVs, themselves and their cameras, plus the people that are actually holding the couple of camcorders. So they have so much to choose from when they were not only filming but editing this. I mean, all of that works in tandem when you're talking about a found footage movie. You're talking about any movie really, but especially found footage movies, those things have to work in tandem. And because they had all of those angles, it gives the editor freedom to really make things super tense and also chop out errors where continuity might not make as much sense and things like that. So all of that was really well done, where it was engaging like I was a viewer watching this all play out, right?
Yeah, and it felt like at times you were watching it live with them, and you got the point of view of like the YouTuber as well as the cinematic view of watching everything happen. So it was so fun. I thought they did an excellent job from not even just with the editing, but and just the production was good too. The quality was good. So you weren't taken out because it was like really bad cinematography or anything like that. It was really clean. Also, this is a good time to talk about the special effects.
Yeah.
The special effects were amazing, I thought.
Really well
None
done.
of it took me out. It actually made me more engaged and more invested to what was happening. There were times where you didn't notice something happen until the replay, and then you see the special effects happening in the background. You're like, oh damn, that was crazy. Like, I thought that was really well done.
Well, I think the nice thing about it is it relied more on practical stuff, it seems like, because
True.
For instance, without spoiling the furniture part, practical, right?
Yep.
It seems like had to have been done practically. The image from the thumbnail where it was the really close up talking in tongues, like
Yeah.
that see, even just alluding to it made me unnerve myself again. Like,
Yep.
that's a practical makeup effect. And you know, so there was a lot of that going on, and a little bit of digital manipulation to practical effects, more so than full CG creations.
Yep.
Right? And I think that's where there's a big difference in quality with horror movies nowadays. There's, when you try and create it fully CG, it has a harder time working.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have all the money of a big studio in order to make it work, or it just doesn't work. But when it's a practical effect that you are manipulating digitally after the fact, it tends to seem like it works better.
Right.
So I think it was a lot of that. Like, there was a person with, a big gash this way that was standing super awkward, that, something happens and there's a digital manipulation that really worked, but that thing was practical.
And now, okay, I want to talk about that moment too, because I was kind of so disappointed because they had it was a really great suspenseful build up, and right when something like you're like, I know you're like at your top, you're at the peak, something's gonna happen, and you're just waiting for the payoff. They do a cut to another scene for like a quick second or two, and then go back, and then the action happened, and I'm like, oh, that killed it for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
That was the only time that I was like, I was so excited because it was going to be such a great payoff, and it would have been if they didn't cut there.
I agree. I think that's a valid argument, especially for that.
But that was the
particular
only
arrangement.
time.
But that's the only time
That
they
was
did
the
something
only
like
time,
that.
and
Yeah.
it affected me so much because it was like I was on the edge of my seat, going, "Oh my god, this is going to be so crazy!"
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh."
And it was still cool,
It
but
was
yeah,
cool.
it just didn't have the impact it could have had they not made that.
That would have
jump.
been my only criticism of the whole movie, really.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I want to make sure we talk about the acting,
Yes.
right? Because generally in found footage movies, acting is something you kind of gloss over, because this is basically in found footage movies a lot of time it's just the movie is happening to these people, and it's not about the people and what's going on around them. You know what I mean? And this one, again, it might be because it was a subtitled movie that I cared more about the characters, and also because maybe it's harder for me to single out a bad actor of another culture necessarily, because their acting style is completely different anyway.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times there's moments in Korean movies which are so over the top for me, but I guess not meant to be played that over the top. That's just how they come across in that culture sometimes. But But nonetheless, that's neither here nor there because, quite frankly, in this one, everyone did such a good job that there was no one that pulled me out of the story, and I was engaged by everyone when they were on camera. And, because it was a fun production movie, and as people that have made stuff, when everyone's in the van kind of jibing each other and stuff like that, that's all really engaging stuff that brings you into their world and makes you feel like a part of the crew.
Right.
But if any of them were bad actors, that could pull you out of it right away, and I did not have that happen to me.
And I agree with you on that. I thought everything felt natural, even when they were like acting in the movie, because there were times where people were in on the gag and they had to like react, and you didn't realize it was a gag until after, and you're like, oh. And then they even make a comment like, oh, you guys are such a great actors, like you wouldn't even tell. And so
turns out,
turns out, yes, very much so. And so it felt very natural, and I thought everybody did a really good job, especially like the female actresses. They did,
especially
amazing.
Charlotte, the more Americanized one.
Yeah,
she did such a good job of being like the over-the-top starlet without being an over-the-top actress that is annoying to watch.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Absolutely. 100%. And she was able, the moments when she was hysterical, it felt genuine.
It really did. 100%. When she's like upset, no, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You can't do that. Like, you're like, oh, geez, yeah, no, I don't want to.
I've been in those.
She's kind of right, yeah.
And then her friend, and then there was this specific time when her friend
has
was
a change,
different.
Yeah.
And the way that she handled that was just, it was. I know. I'm like, I can't rave about this movie enough. Thank you so much for just putting this on our plate.
Good job, Scuba Steve.
I feel like I don't know if you said anything when you said put in the watch this or not.
I can't remember at this point.
If you did it and just said this would be great for Cecil Marcia, then you hit the note.
Yeah.
This
it might just be that the right two people watch this.
Our movie.
Yeah.
This is our type of movie, and that's why when I started watching, I was like, oh, Cecil's gonna love this, because this is the type of movie we gel best on.
100%.
So thank you so much. It's so
good work. And I think that's as good a place as any to wrap it up, unless you have another comment.
We didn't talk about the sound design.
Oh, yeah. Please, by all means.
And I just got chills thinking about it.
And it's a good point, because I skipped over the thing I alluded to with music. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so the music was good, but...
Well, I'll talk about it. Yeah, but go ahead.
I'll let you talk about it, but one thing I wanted to talk about, there was a few scenes, that you could actually hear things, kind of scattering or moving, and when you're not looking, then you can hear it move in the background, and you're like, oh my god, and you're like, okay, and they turn to look at the area, and you're just like, oh my god, it's there, it's there. It's just.
Did you watch with surround sound or with headphones? Which did you do?
It was surround sound, and I was watching in the living room.
Okay. Because I watched it with headphones.
Oh my god, I don't think I could have done it with headphones.
That scared the shit out of me, especially when the very first thing happens when they're filming a piece and this door in the background just goes boom.
Oh.
And I was like, Jesus Christ! And every time something like that happened, and it also was more intense where that thing, when you finally heard something, it's extremely silent and motionless, and then you just hear plop, drag, plop, drag, and it you finally get up to its face and you just hear and just that, but it's right in your ear, and I'm just like, oh yes, the sound design was tremendous in this.
So
absolutely.
good. And
I recommend headphones over surround sound setup, but
I don't know if I could handle it, but I would love to, because that would I can just imagine.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, this is available for free on Tubi. It came with 3 or 4 ads throughout the entire movie. It's
not
nothing
horrible at all.
No, nothing at all. And it was high enough quality. I think it was 720 that we watched it in, so it's technically high definition, even though not extreme high definition. But
I watched it on my big screen, no problem.
Yeah, what I was going to say is about the music. Most times found footage movies don't have music because they're just presenting tapes that have been supposedly found or whatever, that were raw. unedited in most cases. And this one, because it is a YouTube show and they're presenting a live show, the director back in base camp even says, okay, and ready, cue music, and go. Because he's piping in the music for the audience that's watching, and so we hear the music come up, and so yes, they're able to use music to augment certain scenarios and moments in the show or in the movie. And I thought that was a extremely clever way to make that happen when, again, that is generally a big limitation to found footage movies.
Yeah, and I agree. It just added to the overall feeling of the movie. It felt more complete. So even though with the found footage, nothing was taken away. It was very clever. Very clever. 100%. I love it. I love it. Oh, this movie is so amazing.
It's really great.
I'm
going to have to seek out a Blu-ray and add it to my collection.
Well, I recommend that because it's amazing. I recommend it to everyone now because I'm just like, this is so cool.
Yeah, and Scuba Steve or anyone, if you guys know of other really good, foreign, especially Korean ghost movies like this, please let us know. Or if there's other cultures that have done this sort of thing, the found footage, going to investigate and actually finding something, we love that. We loved both Grave Encounters. We loved this. So clearly this is a subgenre that Marcia and I completely jive with. So if you have other recommendations, please let us know. But thank you again very much to Scuba Steve for this recommendation. Again, if you guys want to become patrons yourselves and recommend movies like this that we will for sure review on the channel, the link to that is in the description box down below. While you're down there, if you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe. Ding that notification bell to make sure you don't miss other episodes going forward. But until next time, you guys, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Marcia Parker.
And remember,
stay scared.